Welcome back, everyone, to the morning run. I hope you're all doing great today. It's a pretty good day today. I can't lie. I'm doing really well. I'm joined by Tyler, my co-host, as always, and we're just in spring training. We're in full swing. And Tyler, how are you doing? How's your week been? I haven't really talked to you so much.
Been good. Been pretty good. Been doing a lot. Fantasy baseball season is picking up, and I've got some drafts already happening and whatnot. So, been preparing a lot for baseball and whatnot. Certainly been tuning a little bit into spring training, but haven't really watched many games to say.
Yeah, no, I watched yesterday. I watched just the Dodger game. Start off at work in between. What's it called? I'm on my break. I just wanted to see Ohtani. He got struck out on 3 pitches by Garrett Crochet, and then I found out he went deep later in the game. But it's good. You know, I've been enjoying the spring training. I enjoy most spring trainings. I know you're not so much not necessarily not a fan, but you don't really pay attention to anything of it. But I think it's a time to just kind of enjoy baseball. The games don't mean anything. You get to see a lot of players that you wouldn't normally get to see play alongside some other players that are very normal and established. And I think it's fun because I've gotten to see a lot of players. And I know other people are in the same boat that I am. In your fantasy league, your big in-depth fantasy leagues, I can't tell you how many of my prospects have been doing very well in spring training so far. Tamar Rogers, Chase DeLauder, just a few names I wanted to shout out. Those
Tamar
guys,
Rogers is not a person, bro.
Tamar Rogers is a insanely good prospect.
Tamar Rogers, bro, is not a person.
Yes, he is. Tamar Rogers is a person.
Tamar Johnson.
What did I say? Tamar Rogers?
Yeah, what do you mean? I said it like 3 times. I mean, he's a great person, but I respect it.
Tamar Johnson. Tamar, I don't know why I said Rogers.
You commit to it, and I respect it. No,
Tamar Johnson. I meant to say Tamar Johnson. He is a beast. I love him. He's my new second baseman of the future, and the Pirates are going to probably bring him up in 10 years, so that's going to be fun. But in all seriousness, it's fun. It's just fun to see people play. And, I caught some... I saw some parts of the Yankee games, but just here and there in passing, I haven't really been watching. But it's just kind of fun. But it's weird that we're in this situation right now, Tyler, where we still have free agents, like notable free agents available. While games are going on, but we made some progress. Scott Boras decided to let one of them go, and the Chicago Cubs have signed Cody Bellinger. Just right off the bat, what are your thoughts about this deal? Do you think it's a good deal? I'll pull up the numbers in a second. Actually, I have it right here before your thoughts. Cody Bellinger signed a 3-year, $80 million contract with the Chicago Cubs, and it's first year he gets paid $27 million, $30 million if he decides to opt out after the season. Then in 2025, he's going to be paid the same, $27.5. Again, if he decides to opt out, that will go up to $32.5. And then if he keeps himself in there, so it's got two player options, and the last year $25 million. So, what are your thoughts on it? He's 30, I believe, right now at this point. So it's going to take him into his mid-30s. It's an interesting sort of deal for him to commit for, especially since he held out so long. I feel like he could have gotten a better deal with much more of a structured year-to-year basis. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of think this deal is a little confusing for both sides. I understand that the Cubs feel that they could use a guy like Cody Bellinger. Bringing in Cody Bellinger, though, I believe does complicate some things in terms of the DH position. Not saying he'll play there, but in terms of who's now forced in there, I've seen a lot of Cubs fans talking about this might force Michael Busch there, because second base and first base might be a little more occupied now with that situation. So I think there's some question marks that may arrive just logistically, but I think if you're Cody Bellinger as well, just 3 years, $90 million, with really just a 1-year deal with a couple opt-outs, seems pretty useless in a sense to me. I thought he would want some security, some long-term understanding there. I guess not. I understand. People like the public, kind of like a lot of writers and stuff who cover this, were projecting maybe 8 years, 200+ million for him. And, that might have been too rich, but I guess he felt like that's what he wanted and it wasn't there, so he took this. But I just think it creates some question marks on both sides. If I'm Cody Bellinger, don't I want a longer term deal, even at a lesser price tag? And if I'm the Cubs, does this deal really benefit us based on the other moves we made this offseason?
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. So it's kind of an interesting thing that happened. I mean, like you alluded to, it's a crowded team already. Cody Bellinger, if he joins the outfield, you've got Pete Crow Armstrong, Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki that have all got to get playing time in that area. But then Cody Bellinger can also play first base. Ian Happ can play first base. So, like you said, Michael Bush plays some DH. I think they're pretty confident with Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson up the middle. I don't know what you think about that, but and I've heard a
But
lot that
it's just now like also a guy you didn't mention even there, like
Nick Madrigal.
and also Christopher Morel,
Well,
who
I saw that he's taking a lot of ground balls at third. I think they want to transition him to third
yeah,
because
they just have
Patrick
so
Wisdom
many
has been a
guys that
failure.
like so many guys that
People
are playing
worth giving a
significant.
shot.
They're throwing dudes everywhere. I'm gonna be fascinated to see how this team operates because I just feel like there's a lot of kind of disjointed pieces,
Yeah.
pieces that
No, no,
don't
no.
really
It's
work
just
together. So
it's a
yeah.
lot of veterans and a lot of young guys, but there's not really a mix, if you know what I mean. And then even when you get to the outfield, which I didn't really touch on, you've got people that are intriguing. Brandon Davis was someone that was once a very highly touted prospect for them. Kevin Alcantara is someone that they like that they got in a trade from the Yankees. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. It uh might have been the Gleyber Torres trade. No, I don't think it was that. But they got him from the Yankees, someone that they really enjoyed. And Cody Bellinger, sorry, not Cody Bellinger, Alexander Canario is someone that they also, I think, still at one point really, really liked. So, yeah, it's like kind
Was it
of,
the Scott DeFrost trade?
yes, thank you. Okay, thank you for that. It was probably the Scott Efros trade. Um, so, the Cubs have a lot of people that they're willing to give time to, and even Matt Mervis we didn't talk about, but the Cubs like him. So it's interesting. It's very interesting with that move. I don't know. I'm not really high on Cody Bellinger. What do you think? Do you think he's gonna produce what he did last year?
No, we're both on the record as pretty blunt Cody Bellinger haters, I guess you could say. I think I've come around to the idea that he's not necessarily like a bad player, but I wouldn't definitely not want to pay him $30 million a year. I think both of us would not want our teams to go for that. I know people around your fan base maybe wanted them to go for that, but glad
Yeah.
they didn't. I guess I think that can he be a productive player? Can he be a good player? Can he be a useful player? Yes, but I don't think he's going to ascend to that level of, top tier player on a contender team, someone that deserves a 30 million a year price tag. It doesn't go out to everyone. It just really it is a 1 year deal with a couple opt outs and situations, but I just think that you want to have someone a little better in that position.
Yeah. And I mean, especially with all the talk they talked in terms of, bringing in Craig Counsell, saying that, hey, we paid all this money for a manager. We're going to make moves. They even sort of in that press conference alluded to the fact that Cody Bellinger, they were moving on from him. And now the Cubs have come back and they've doubled down on him, at least for this year, potentially for the next two. It's just kind of a puzzling move to see the Cubs state something. We talked about the Red Sox a lot in a positive light. Many people have talked about them in a negative light in terms of their comments that they made earlier in the year and then what they proceeded to do in the offseason. Cubs are sort of in that basket too. I know it seems like it's a different story because they brought back Cody Bellinger and they brought in Shota Imanaga, but we talked about this before we recorded. The way I see it is you replaced Marcus Stroman with Shota Imanaga, and hopefully he's better than Marcus Stroman. But for the Cubs, Marcus Stroman was pretty good. He was an all-star at least last year. So you're looking to at least get that level of production out of Imanaga, which is doable, especially with what you're paying him. You sort of have to expect something similar to that. But he is sort of the guy that everyone went to after Yamamoto was gone. Nothing, not to take anything away from him because he was good in Japan in his own right at another level, like at an elite level as well. But it's a whole different, it's night and day. He's older. It's there's, so
Can
I
I
think with
run a
the
little um thought experiment around you player comparison idea
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Cody
Okay.
Bellinger. So
Sure.
um let's go with player A. He's got 26 home runs, a 7.2% walk rate, 15% strikeout rate, 525 slugging, 356 on base, 134 WRC plus, 4.1 war. Player
Hmm.
B, 24 home runs, 10.9% walk rate, 21.4% strikeout rate, 363 on base, 466 slug, 130 WRC plus, 4.3 war. You would say those players are essentially pretty similar in terms of production and numbers, right? For
Yeah.
2023 season.
Yeah.
Well, player A, obviously, Cody Bellinger, and player B was Brennan Nimmo. And I chose Nimmo because I believe he just signed a basically 8-year contract last offseason for about 20 or so million a year. And maybe Cody Bellinger believes he deserves more, but I think that's probably around what the market strategically is for Bellinger. Maybe a little more, but around 20 to 25 a year for 8 years. And that probably is what turned him off from, signing earlier and why we're in this situation. But if you're Cody Bellinger and you have a deal like Brendan Nimmo's, I think I would take that. I think that is pretty standard market and it's kind of where I'm at. And I don't
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah.
think that I
I
made a
think
mistake if I'm Cody Bellinger.
so. Here's the thing. I got the age wrong earlier at the beginning of the talk. He's actually 28. So yeah, if he comes out and doubles down on the year and improves and everything, he's in his prime years now, right? So that would be the aim, especially with Boras as your client. I don't know who Nimmo has, but you know how Boras acts. So
Well, I
you
think the
would
question is can he obviously I think we can agree that even if we don't aren't as high in him as a player as others, he can have a season like he had last year. He
Mhm.
just did it. And the question is, can he ascend beyond kind of the production of last year? Because if he can't, then I think the contract he can get is pretty locked in. It's at 8 to 20, 25 million a year. Um, kind of contract. But if he can ascend more, then it makes sense to bet on yourself and
When
push
you say
more for a
ascend, do
better
you
contract.
mean MVP caliber again, or
Well,
what do you
in
mean?
terms of, ascend, is putting up numbers that are somewhat substantial improvement. Now, I know a 4-win season is a great year, but in terms of how we improve our market and our value in that place is by improving pretty significantly. So, obviously, that would be close to an MVP candidate. Probably bubbling. I think if we're talking about a guy that's bubbling under
Yeah.
MVP,
Yeah.
but like that second level, that would be
So
maybe acceptable. But yeah,
what I would say is no, I don't think he can take that next step. I think he will stay at this like sort of range. What he basically did is 2019, I think everyone can consider as one of those juice ball years, probably, right? So that's his MVP season, not taking anything away from him, just pointing that out. His two previous years prior, age 21, 22 seasons, he had 39 home runs, 25 home runs, WRC plus of 138 and 120. He basically has gotten back to that level from when he jumped into the league as this bright young stud that won Rookie of the Year, had the ability of, to be a very productive player in a lineup. But I don't think he can take that next step to being considered one of the big stars of the game again, like he once was. He's a good player on the Cubs, and at least for this year. And I think what it does is I think it just keeps them in the same position that they were last year, which is a good team that has the ability to really go either way during the season because it's a long year. So I don't yeah I think it's going to be weird. Fangraphs has him projected to be like a 2.5 WAR player, sort of league average, 107 WRC plus. So it's I don't know. Maybe no. He's projected to play more games by them. So it's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
projections always get me so confused and stuff and weird out because like if you look at his projections, okay,
Well,
he's
they're
got like
almost always wrong. That's
well,
something
no,
to
the
take
thing
into
is
account.
that
But
here's the
like,
thing that confuses me. Like, yes, there are a little bit of a decline, his counting numbers from the last season, but like pretty close, in terms of the projections and what he did in
mhm.
2023. But then we go to like the slugging percentage is 80-point difference. The WRC plus is 30. And it's like, is that how do we determine that value is so drastic? Because like if he put up a 134 WRC plus with these numbers, if it's like okay, these numbers are probably max 10% decrease. why are we projecting him at 106 WRC plus, not like 118, 120? It confuses me a little bit how the projections work, but we ride with them, I guess. I think the main thing I've looked at is like WAR and a lot of these advanced analytic numbers are incredibly hard to like predict because I think a lot of it is based on like expected batted numbers and how hard you hit the ball and all that. So, a lot of those numbers are very reliant play by play, I guess. But it always confuses me. I do think Cody Bellinger, like, we dislike him. I think I dislike him, in terms of a player and where people rate him. But I think he's probably a little bit better than the projections display. I agree with you. I don't think he'll ascend to anything like he once was, but I do think that there's some room for him to have a good season and not like I think there's more room for him to hurt his value necessarily than to help his value.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that. I can totally see that. It's, the Cubs will, I'm just not impressed. Like that's ultimately kind of my overall thing here. I'm not impressed by the deal. I'm not impressed. Like sure, he got a lot of money, but to me this kind of hurts Scott Boras. Not to hurts. I mean, Scott Boras still has an impeccable record, but this is just not a good outcome for Scott Boras, not a good outcome for Bellinger, and I think sort of like a settle for the Cubs because they talked a big game. The fans were disappointed when they didn't go out and get people. So now they can say, hey, listen, we brought back Cody Bellinger. He's the reason why we took that next step. So, here he is. So that's sort of how I see it. It's
Yeah.
really up to the
Well,
other pieces on the
mhm.
team to
You
really take
mentioned
the
the
Cubs.
Cubs, right?
Yeah.
Like the Cubs, and they're an interesting team. And speaking of them, one player that was a top prospect for them had an interesting, fun little career for them. Moved on, Javier Baez. You know
Hmm.
him, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Of
Um,
course.
and we're still, spring training and all that happening. This thought popped in my mind this week, and I just was interested in your take. Ellie De La Cruz is a larger Javier Baez.
I mean, I think he has the chance to do
Buy or
that.
sell that.
At the moment, I'm selling it, but yeah, no, I totally see what you mean because listen, he really didn't have a good year. The guy was flashy because when he was on base, he was extremely fast and stole all these bases, and when he put barrel to the ball, it went so far, and he's so big and athletic and all this stuff, but he really, I think, let that get to his head, and he was too free swingy, and he was not very productive. He wasn't, and I think that's a big reason why the Reds rather, you almost made me say the Cubs. I think the Reds ended up not making the playoffs there because they were trying to make it. They were they had that run and then didn't. And I think that's a big reason because he started off really hot and then fell off a cliff. They didn't send him down. They didn't, give him reps at a different skill level to keep him, leveled. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm willing to give him one more season before I say this, so that's why I'm going to say sell. But I can totally see what you're saying. Like he's got this big swing when you make contact. It goes. I still remember the first time I saw Javi Baez hit a home run, like while I was watching a recap or like when he was a rookie. It may have been his first major league home run or whatever, but he hit the snot out of this ball, and he just so far. And it's that same sort of light tower power that kind of comes with as a blessing and a curse potentially. That okay, sure, when you make contact, it's going to go really far, but oh boy, is it hard to make contact sometimes. And we did see that from Ellie,
Very
but
concerned, Vicar.
no, it's concerning. It definitely is. It
Ellie's
definitely
got a
is.
lot of issues.
Definitely is. But
I think he's El Mago,
mhm,
larger and
okay.
lankier El Mago.
Okay.
And
Do
I
you,
think part of here. So I'll
yeah,
explain a little bit of the reason why
please
I believe
expand.
this is facts. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I think a very easy player to compare Ellie De La Cruz to is O'Neill Cruz because they're both very long, very quick, very hard throwing shortstops who have a lot
Yeah.
of power.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at O'Neill Cruz and the way he swings and the way he approaches the plate, does he strike out a lot? Yes. But his swing is much more compact. It's much more
Hmm.
quick. He is
Hmm.
not missing these balls pretty drastically at any point. I think there's not a lot of moving parts to it. It's pretty straightforward. He doesn't fall into this hole. But if we compare them directly, one swing is a lot more dynamic. There's a lot more stuff going on. One guy's missing balls a lot worse. And it's Ellie
Hmm.
De La Cruz. And I think that if we're looking at shortstops that are athletically gifted, don't really fit into the offensive stereotype of what a shortstop is,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
guy that can hit the ball hard. I think Javier Baez was kind of one of the main players of the last decade that resembled that. And he had his flaws. And if I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking, how do you avoid it? It's by compacting things, simplifying things. O'Neill Cruz is moving towards that, and Elliot Cruz doesn't really seem to be. So that's where I think there's kind of this idea cooking for me. And I see it, and I really don't know if I'm wrong.
I think you have a really good point there because I gotta say, to be quite honest with you, when I think about that, when you just, explain that to me, staying compact and how that, when it comes to shortstops and the ones that are truly elite and truly good, it's true, I think, across the board. Traditionally, you think about people like Cal Ripken Jr., Derek Jeter, very compact swings, but also think about people right now who's currently the top shortstop in baseball. I would say it's Corey Seager, someone with the one of the most compact swings in baseball, and sometimes it even looks unathletic. It's so compact, and you know, it's that. Do you want the showmanship and the flair of a big swing that leads to a gigantic home run anytime you make contact, or do you want the more polished approach like Corey Seager has been able to master and become an elite player, leading the Rangers to a World Series? And like you said, O'Neill Cruz has that more compact swing, but both of them are very, very big. They're very, very powerful, but they have a lot of swing and miss. And I think that's an interesting thing. Of the three, I'm definitely going compact and
Well,
with Corey Seager.
even to go
Um,
more with it, like for someone who's not like a already superstar like Corey Seager,
yeah.
a guy you're familiar with. Look at a dude like Chase Lauder. He's a big boy. He's 6'4",
Mhm.
like he's
Yes.
tall.
Yes.
You look at that swing, those hands especially, how quick and compact they are, how fast he gets from point A to point B, and he keeps them as direct and straight as possible. That's what makes him so appealing to me, is how fast his um, bat speed was and all that, and how quickly he can turn around on balls. And
Hmm.
that's a similar type of feel that you need when you have that height, when you have that power, have that ability.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
he's
agree.
another player that falls into that and doesn't really seem to be the same with Ellie De La Cruz. So I just feel like we look at these type of players. This is how they survive. This is how they advance.
Well,
We
I will
see
say
so many
this.
tall, powerful players. Like look at Framil Reyes. He's not here no more. There's a lot of
That's
players
true.
that hit the
That's
ball
true.
far. Doesn't make you relevant.
Well, Aaron Judge, for example, the one guy that has really stuck, large guy that has been able to master the art of hitting, at least in this generation, he keeps himself very compact. His stance is open. It's very open, but when he loads, he's in this one big, kind of coil. And then as soon as his foot steps down, it's boom, ball, the whole batch just in the zone on a little bit of an uppercut, and he is so strong that any sort of contact is going to be a home run most of the time. But same thing, compact at the moment that you need the most strength and contact and everything. And I think we see that from at least in this era of baseball with how hard it's being thrown and just how nasty things are. One more thing I kind of wanted to add before we moved on. Talk about explosive swings. Not every explosive swing is going to be a bad player at any point. Albert Pujols is famous for his explosive swing, but the difference is he had ungodly lower half control. That famous swing getting low. But at the moment it was time for him to swing, boom, just one of the most iconic swings. So you can still have a very explosive swing and be successful, a Hall of Famer, a very reoccurring star in the game. But at the current moment, I think what you're looking for when you're looking at an athletic shortstop is someone that's going to be compact in hitting, and the strength and the ability to get a barrel to the ball is going to lead to the home run, and not necessarily the raw strength and power. Correa, for example, someone that I think trying to be a little too home run happy in a weird stadium now. He knows he traditionally hits well in that stadium. Didn't have a good year. Didn't have a good year that last year. Maybe he needs to get a little bit more traditional as well and go towards being more compact as well. So I think you bring up a really good point, honestly. Um, that's that's kind of my last point I wanted to say. I had another topic I wanted to discuss though before we hopped off.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching just spring training videos, and I
Okay.
talked earlier about the good things, and a lot of big swings taken by rookies, potential rookies, and prospects alike. But I think one thing many people are paying attention to also are the big names that are coming in, and the seasons that they had prior, whether they were good or bad. How are they going to build upon that or change it? Um, Everyone I know is talking about Otani and Yamamoto, their first introductions into spring training under the new uniforms. But the one thing I think people are also very interested in is how Alek Manoah is going to do. The Blue Jays were held back by the fact that he just fell off the face of the map. They have one of the best pitchers in baseball and Kevin Gausman, someone who's completely turned his career around into one of the premier pitchers in this game at the moment. And they were really hoping to have a budding star, someone who started in the All-Star game. This is at the time coming into this season. Alek Manoah in 2022, he went 16-7 with a 2.24 ERA and 196 innings, and he had 180 strikeouts in 196 innings. With that, his ERA plus was at 172, and at 24 years old, he finished third in Cy Young voting. So he and Kevin Gausman, along with their young stars, Vladdy, Bo, they had big expectations. They had really big expectations, and this guy ended up going to instructional league. He was so bad. Now, the only diamond in the rough there was that people kept going, "Whoa, whoa, Roy Halladay did this too." Well, everyone shut up about this. Like, can we be real here? Um, Even though we had that sort of season, we can't be drawing Roy Halladay comparisons after
I'm Roy
two
Halladay.
two seasons.
I am Roy Halladay.
You're Roy Halladay.
You're Roy Halladay.
I'm Roy Halladay.
We are
Yeah.
all really have Roy Halladay in us,
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's a moral of the story.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, because that's the only way that could be true. It was just an abysmal season. He started in 19 games. He only pitched 87 innings. They didn't even give him the chance to get 100 innings. ERA plus went from 172 down to just 72. He lost 100 points on him. It was just literally abysmal. 3-9. So enough crapping on him there for the moment. Well, I guess not. So people coming into spring training are very interested to see what was going to happen. And at the moment, it seemed it was going to be very good, maybe potentially question mark. He had shed a ton of weight. He looked good. He had done some interviews where he kind of said like, yeah, I messed up. I was trying to be this boisterous kind of guy, and no one pays you to be boisterous. They pay you to win. And he went in for his first start, and I don't have the box score up right at the moment, but it was pretty bad. I don't know if you do, Tyler, but he looked
No, I
bad.
don't.
His
Here,
fastball was...
I can talk Manoah if you want to talk a little.
Yeah, talk
little
Manoah.
bit.
I'll get the box score.
All right, here let's talk Noah. To be honest with you, Victor, Alek Manoah, he actually had a pretty good season last year. I think a lot of people are overhating.
Oh, really?
No, I'm joking. This dude is so cooked.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to actually keep that going. Try to play with you a little bit, but couldn't really hold that in. He's just so bad. Didn't watch his start. Saw some heat maps of where the pitches ended up in spring training. And I gotta say, this dude's so cooked. He cannot find the zone for anything. He used to be someone that I thought had a lot of actual talent. He probably still does have that talent. It's just the control is abysmal right now. I really think that he's not a guy that is finished in his MLB career, but I think it's going to be a while before he can get back. He's going to have to reinvent himself, really take time, because he is far away from what he was. It's crazy to see.
In his first start in spring training, he went 1 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 4 runs, 1 walk, 3 hit by pitches, 38 pitches with 17 of them being strikes, 11 batters faced, and a 21.60 ERA when it was all said and done at the end of the day. And you were talking about the heat maps. I have just the map of where his pitches were going. There were fastballs at right-handed batters' faces, a slider that would have hit someone in the dome. I assume they moved out of the way because it was a slider, and just a ton of things inside and up that sinkers that weren't sinking. They were all up. Sliders that weren't sliding, all up. Fastballs that he threw one changeup that was like in the middle of the zone, basically.
I think that's how you're supposed to throw those pitches, Victor.
No. Like, this is like...
No, you want to hit batters.
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. That's what you're saying. Yeah, okay. Well, I guess
Like,
that's
look at
true.
Austin Adams. His name is in the record books.
Yeah, yeah. And his fastball was okay, I guess, but it just was not it was just not a good outing from him. He put out a very poor showing in the first. Now, people might say we were overreacting this and that, spring training, blah blah blah.
Look,
If
here's the thing with Manoa, right? At the
right,
MLB level, that is a
yes.
massive hole. If I am in the whole MLB team, manager, player, whatever, holding my bat and never moving it for the whole, I'm forcing him to strike me out 3 times, throw me 3 strikes. He has not shown any ability for that. Like, you don't even need to hit him if his stuff still has movement every now and then, like it's got dirty break. Who cares? He can't find the zone for his life. It's something that you cannot have as a starter right now, and I doubt that he'll be a starter on the MLB roster if this continues. He has to change it up real quick because it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, he hit Spencer Torkelson in the head, by the way. That's interesting. Well, yeah,
They in
Alec
the same
Manoa.
draft class?
No, I don't actually. Let me look that up because I'm not sure. Because it was weird. Torkelson was brought up really, really fast, which is what I believe to be a big sign of his struggles. Um, Manoa was
2019, right?
drafted
Wasn't that Torgelson's draft?
2019. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so
Yeah,
Manoa
that
was
was
11th
Manoa's draft.
overall. Torkelson was first overall. Wow. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
remember
just
he
really
was the first guy from that draft to be called up.
Torkelson or Manoa.
Manoa, or it might have
Manoa.
been actually technically Garrett Crochet, but after him, then Alec Manoa.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's yeah, no, I don't know. It's an interesting situation with Manoa. Like when you look at the Blue Jays and with how they're trying to compete, of course the Tampa Bay Rays are always going to be a contender. The Orioles are now the team to beat, and the Yankees have gotten substantially better. So it's rough. It's rough, and it's simultaneously rather trying to convince Vlad Guerrero, Bo Bichette that this is the place you want to stay. You don't want to go out to those other teams and
Hey,
try to win a
don't forget the Red Sox got a reality TV show. That's big for them.
Yes, yes, that is big for them. And maybe if they decide to get Jordan Montgomery, we'll see clips of the people in John Henry going, okay, we really want him, but we just have to wait for the price to go down. I don't know how you sign with the Red Sox if you're Jordan Montgomery after hearing that. I would take any deal with any other team after hearing that, just because I wouldn't want to give them the satisfaction of the fact that, oh, you're gonna wait for me to have my price lower just because there's nowhere else for me to go. Okay, fine, I'll
Look,
just go with you.
we
That's
know
so
Montgomery
insult.
said on record he's a stupid man with a hot wife.
It's true. That's true.
So,
And she
you
works
know,
in Boston. It makes sense for him. That's where he's been doing his training in the off season, which is why they should just sign him already. But like, how is that not breaking some sort of rule to just say that we're interested in Montgomery, but we're waiting for the price to go down?
well, what rule would that be against?
I don't know, like best interest of baseball. Like, how is this in the best interest of baseball? Like,
I don't
no,
know if
like
that's a
that's a rule.
rule.
I think that's a rule that every team has to act within the best interest because,
I think it's just a highly subjective thing that is in the hands of Rob Manfred.
well,
And I
he
don't know if
he
Rob
has the
Manfred
veto
holds
power.
the
He
stance that
he
you hold the stance
he
on.
has the
That's all.
veto power. The commissioner has veto power to veto anything, giving the reason of the best interest of baseball. Obviously, he has to be able to substantiate that. But
Yeah, what I'm saying is I don't think Rob Manfred holds your idea.
well, no, but I
I
would be
think he's
willing.
cool with
Of
it.
course, he's not, but I don't think Rob Manfred is always looking out for the best interests of baseball anyway. But I would be willing to say that having, your most talked about free agents at the start of free agency still being some of the most talked about free agents at the start of free agency being still available without even any sort of idea of where they're going to go is really not good for the sport. People were talking about the NBA free agency and how there's a deadline and all that stuff. And I don't think that would work for baseball, but this is the sort of thing that makes people want that. I don't think it would be smart, and I don't think people would want that when you're in spring training and one of your young guys that you were hoping is going to make the rotation ends up getting hurt and is going to miss 2 months. And now you got to replace him, but you can't because you've got a free agent deadline. I don't think they would like it then. And that's something people don't think about. On the off but on the other hand, this is not good. Like this is just not good. So
Yeah.
it's just
Well,
it's just kind
I've
of
got
perplexing.
one
Yeah.
proposal. I don't know throw your idea on this, and this is also leading into a larger conversation. So we don't have to go too in depth into it, but
Sure.
I think one of the main things, yeah, there's a deadline with the NBA, but I think one of the big differences here, NBA, MLB, obviously NBA has a salary cap, and I'm not claiming that that matters, but what the NBA also has is a salary floor. Teams have to spend a certain percent of the salary cap. Now, obviously,
It's true. That is true too. That's a
baseball,
big reason.
you wouldn't be able to base it off of a salary cap, but I think if baseball implemented some level of a salary floor, not only would it force teams to invest that much, but it also gives a much better understanding to the baseball players there as to what the market is for them, because they know what teams have the money, what teams don't have money. Literally, if there's a cheap team, their budget might just be that floor, and that it gives a better idea and understanding of how your market will be. And I think it'll work and force, some teams not paying stuff to sell or to invest and all that. So, I think that that's the way I would go about it. What do you think of that potential idea as a solution?
Well, I've always been a fan of the salary floor, so I think that's a good idea. The thing is, the luxury tax really didn't work out the way I think people originally thought it would. It was presented to the fans as like, oh, hey, this is just like a thing that is going to keep the big teams from spending the obscene amount of money that they used to spend in the past, and we're not going to get. But in reality, it was became an excuse. It's become an excuse for big teams to say, and teams in general to say, hey, listen, like we can't put together, high roster, high payrolls for a variety of reasons, and ultimately it leads to the fact that at some point in time we may be over the luxury tax, and we as an organization can't afford that. So it's better to do blah 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 blah. So I think the remedy to all this sort of stuff is a salary floor that at the very least you need to spend, maybe $100 million on payroll, because it's crazy that you have situations where you have teams that aren't competing that have less money than like a third of another team's roster. It's just crazy. It's actually just crazy, or not even less than the third. Because even at 100 million, that would still be the case, because people like the Yankees, the Mets, those teams have $300+ million payrolls. So it's a craziness to the rate, and even the Rays. Like I think we need to hold. Well, no, but I mean specifically the Rays. Like you need to hold their foot to the fire and say like, yes, you guys have been competitive, and that's why no one's gotten on your case for not spending a lot of money. But think about what you could do and what you could do for baseball, especially in the Bay Area, having this problem getting the community. What if you won the World Series and kept your players? How about that for community? Like it's just a crazy concept. You went out there and actually spent money. It's kind of wild. And then the Pirates, the Pirates guys Nutting is using the Pirates as his own personal slush fund. Like he's just getting in all the revenue sharing money, and he's just pocketing it all. It's ridiculous. The guy needs to be put in jail, in my opinion. And what's it called? The Rockies guys, they're just like incompetent. They're just like, yeah, we realize that we can't get any pitchers, so we're just gonna vibe.
They're funny. They respond like to emails from fans.
Yeah, no, exactly. They just vibe. Yeah, no, exactly.
But Chris Bryant.
You're right. They do have Chris Bryant. You're right. They do. They paid him a ton of money. He was an MVP one year. This is all true.
Who was not an MVP?
Who?
Nolan Arenado.
Nolan Arenado was never an MVP, and he probably should have been a couple of those years in Colorado. So that's just sort of my take. I agree with you. Salary floor, very, very, very needed. Very much needed. I think at this point we've reached the end of the podcast now, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, any final thoughts, Tyler?
I don't know. I think I do actually have one final thing I would like to say.
Okay.
Glasnow had a performance in spring training versus the Dodgers.
Okay.
Didn't do too well, want to say. So putting that out there. That's better.
Interesting. Well, my final thoughts are going to be this: that I was reading a little bit about Ron Washington. As everyone knows, he's the new manager of the Angels. I'm starting off this new year. You thought it was over. I'm still going to be talking about the Angels. They're going to win 0 games this season because I'm a fan of them again. Ron Washington, he has said to the media he wants them to start stealing more bases this year. I think that's great because the front office, the ownership is incapable of signing any actual talent. So you're going to have to manufacture runs some way. So this is nice to see. I like this. I'm a fan. And also, I think that eventually Blake Snell is going to end up on the Angels, and the Giants are going to end up with Jordan Montgomery if he doesn't go to the Red Sox. Those are my final thoughts. Thank you all for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, share wherever you can, and we'll see you guys next week. We got a lot of spring training stuff to cover, and of course, as March rolls around, we have, like we mentioned last week, the segments, the team evaluations that we're going to be putting out there for you guys. It's going to be fun, and I hope you guys are excited for all that. So, thank you all. We'll see you next week.